Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Nikki and today we are going to be doing a full day of baking using my homemade baking mixes. Now, if you were here last week, you would have seen me actually make these. If you weren't, go ahead and check that out first because that will explain a lot going forward in this video. I'm going to be making these in a specific order, so if you want to follow along, click the link in the description box below where I have a link to a blog post that outlines exactly all of the steps that I take so you can just follow along and enjoy watching this. So we are going to get started with our homemade granola bars. Those ones take the longest in the fridge, so we'll just get those ready to go. Okay, I threw my hair up, I washed my hands really well. Now we're ready to rumble. I'm just looking on my phone to grab all of the recipes to make this super quick and easy. For today, I'm planning on having a wet measuring cup and a dry measuring cup. So this one we're going to start with 1.5 cups of peanut butter. This goes into our pan for the stove. I'm going to melt it on the stove today just to make it a little bit more even. Now we are going to do 3/4 of a cup of maple syrup. And then it is 2 tablespoons of butter. We're gonna go put this on the stove and get it cooking. This has already started to melt. So we're just gonna watch that nice and close so it doesn't burn. But while this is cooking, we're going to grab our baking tray. So I'm gonna use a 9x13 today. That's what this recipe makes. And I'm gonna line it with parchment paper because I'll be honest, this baking tray is old. I wouldn't say it's the best. It's almost all melted down already, if you can believe that. We moved to this house not too long ago and it has a gas stove and it's literally completely different than cooking on an electric one. I feel like the gas just makes it go so fast. So one thing to consider if you're doing this is your mixture is going to be very hot, and if you put chocolate chips in here, they may melt. Now that's not that much of a concern for me today, but if you want these to be perfectly chunky with the chocolate chips, you might want to wait until your mixture cools down just a hair. My mixture is done, so I just turned it off and I'm gonna let it cool for a couple of minutes. Just put your lined baking tray off to the side, grab a big mixing bowl. In we pour the peanut butter, maple syrup, or honey mixture. The more you scrape out of your container now, the less you are going to have to clean in your dishes. So try and get as much as you can. All right, and then give it a good mix. You can see here my chocolate chips are starting to melt a little bit. It's just gonna be a really chocolatey granola bar. Which who can complain about that? Once the mixture is completely coated in the peanut butter, we're gonna pour it into our baking dish. I'm just gonna give this a little spray. Now this part is a little bit messy, because either you use your fingers to squish it down or you use the back of a measuring cup. I usually like to start with my fingers just to get it in the right place, but then I switch to a measuring cup. So just spray the back, you can spray the top. Basically, you're just going to make sure this is really compact in there. I just remembered I did not put vanilla in this. It will still taste amazing. Vanilla is kind of optional to enhance flavors. This is going to go into the fridge for basically the whole day. So when you're doing a big baking day like this, your kitchen can get messy so fast. So in between every single recipe, I'm just gonna quickly tidy it up and make sure that I reset for the next one. It's also very handy if you do have a dishwasher to have it completely empty so you can just toss everything in there as you go. Also, this is my only big mixing bowl, so I'm just gonna be cleaning it out in between every single recipe. If you have multiple mixing bowls, that would make this day a lot easier, but you do what you have to. The second recipe that we are going to do is brownies. Now, first you have to start with preheating the oven to 325 degrees. And then I just wanted to quickly chat about why I picked this order. Number one, it's because the granola bars take forever in the fridge. You want them super hard before you're cutting them and then storing them. But then after that, I went based on oven temperatures. So I started with 325 degrees, which is the brownie mix. And then we went up to the 350 degrees, which is the apple spice bread. And then we finish with 400 degrees for our muffins. Let's get started with these brownies. I do have a bowl that will fit them, thank goodness. We're gonna start by emptying the brownie mix into the bowl. So I remembered that I tripled this recipe. I just had to take some of it out. I've got 3 eggs that I quickly washed. And I'm going to crack them into a separate container before I pour them in, just to make sure. And this third egg is just going to be the yolk. A splash of vanilla. And then 5 tablespoons of melted butter. I'm just gonna give this a quick mix. If you put hot butter into eggs, you can literally scramble them, which sounds horrible. So we're not gonna do that today. So I'm gonna spray this pan. And then pour the brownie mix in. I don't know if it's pouring so much as scooping. And I do like to make it in a round container because literally that's what I have. Isn't that funny? But if you have a square baking dish that you would prefer to use, absolutely do that. I've never had anybody complain about the shape of my brownie, but not to say it can't happen. Okay, perfect. Now we are going to pop this into the oven for 30 minutes. Okay, there we go. Now, while that's cooking, I'm gonna start cleaning up quickly. But basically recipe 2 is done already, which is crazy because I have not even had my coffee. So I'm gonna clean up, then sit and relax for a little bit and have a quick coffee. Then we'll be right back. Timer for my brownies just went off, perfect timing. I pulled them out of the oven and then I just bumped the oven temperature up to 350 degrees because we are going to go get started on our apple spiced bread. This year we planted a ton of fruit trees and apple trees were definitely included in that. But since we did not have any apples to make our own applesauce, I had to buy it. But let's do the eggs quickly. So it's 2 eggs, a little bit of vanilla, 1.5 cups of applesauce, and then 6 tablespoons of butter again. So we're gonna pour the butter in. Sometimes I use a hand mixer to get all of this together, and I know it's written in my recipe that way. Today we're just gonna use the spatula. We're gonna try and save a little bit of dirty dishes. Okay, and then your mix goes in. We're gonna use another round baking dish. Give it a good spray. Now this will dome up quite a bit. The first time I made it, I was like, woo! Okay, and into the oven it goes. And this is going to be baking for 40 to 45 minutes. We are on recipe number 4 already. So we're gonna preheat the waffle iron and then we are going to grab our waffle mix. If you remember last week, this could be a waffle mix or it could be pancake batter. Today I'm gonna do waffles though. I'm just feeling that vibe. So grab your bowl and we'll put 1.5 cups of milk in there. I do mostly make my own oat milk. However, I did not have the time, so I'm just using store-bought today. Another thing that I suggested last week in my video was to squeeze any extra lemon juice you had into an ice cube tray and just keep it like that. This is such a game changer because I have to make this into a buttermilk and it literally takes 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, which is exactly what this is. So we're just gonna throw that in, probably 2 of them. It just needs a drizzle of vanilla extract. And then it's 1/3 cup of either butter or coconut oil. Today I am using butter. I made it nice and hot to try and melt some of that lemon. The lemon is completely melted. The butter is melted. And now all we're going to do is pour this mix in. I believe I tripled this recipe as well. So it should be scoopable. Not too thin, not too thick. Spray it. And then it's about 1/4 cup per side for my waffle iron. This is the last one. It feels like there's no good place to film properly in my kitchen, so here we are. But my family doesn't always love eggs in recipes. It kind of makes them feel weird. So we are gonna swap out the eggs for a banana today and make these into banana double chocolate chip muffins. I think it's gonna be really good. So instead of the 2 eggs, we'll start with 1 mashed banana. And then we will go ahead and make the buttermilk again. So we'll do 1 1/3 cup of oat milk to 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. And then 6 tablespoons of melted butter. A little splash of vanilla, and that is the rest of my vanilla. I'll have to buy a new one. Now while that lemon is just melting, I'm going to take out my muffin tins. Again, these babies are old, but they still work. And I'm gonna spray each one. The mix goes directly into the wet ingredients. This is also a bit of a thicker batter. Honestly, this one tastes a lot like a chocolate cake, which is awesome. Then I use an ice cream scoop. This is supposed to make 18 muffins. And then this goes into the oven. These definitely smell ready. Oh yeah, look at that. We are done with the oven, so we'll just turn that off. And if you saw my snack video a few weeks ago, you'll know that I have a very specific trick that I do for muffins, which is letting them cool for 2 to 5 minutes in their muffin tin, and then I dump them upside down onto the counter or a clean cutting board or whatever to let them cool the rest of the way. And this way the bottoms of them get super, super crispy. So I am just grabbing all of the baked goods that we made. They're completely cooled down and we are going to get them ready for the freezer. So I've got freezer bags, some parchment paper, our granola bars, double chocolate chip muffins, waffles, brownies, apple spice cake, and I do actually have a banana loaf that I need to cut up and freeze as well. I made that yesterday. Basically, all of these need to be packaged the same way. We're going to use freezer bags because I just find that easiest. You can use containers. They will take up a little more space. So the waffles are just gonna go single layer. I'm gonna try my best to not have these overlap too much because I do find they're a little bit trickier to break apart if they're all mushed together in the bag. So I'm gonna do 2 layers that are flat. You could also flash freeze these in a single layer on a baking sheet, but honestly, sometimes that just takes too much time. I do reuse all of my Ziploc bags. I try not to be wasteful as much as I can, but until I find a better alternative, I'm gonna stick with these. Okay, so waffles are done. We go through these quick enough that I don't find we need parchment paper, but you are more than welcome to use them. I just like to freeze them single layer in a Ziploc bag, and then whenever I need one, I take it out, throw it into either a container or throw it right into a lunchbox, whatever. These are a staple in my snack plates that I make for the kiddos. I would say that these take about half an hour to thaw if you're just doing it on the counter. I remember when I was little, my mom used to make muffins all of the time. I think that's where I got my love of making them and eating them. And she would just put it in my lunchbox, and by the time snack rolled around, it was perfectly thawed. So I definitely recommend that. So these ones are gonna go into the freezer, but I have 6 left that we are going to eat for a snack tomorrow. So I'm gonna leave those in just a container. If I know that we're going to be using them within the next day or 2, typically I'll just put them in a container either in the fridge, but they actually store pretty well just on your counter as well. Whatever you are most comfortable with. But these ones are gonna be for our tomorrow snack. Now the brownie, you might wanna give it a cut around the edge, then flip it upside down. Make sure that when you're making anything, you're really spraying. Oh, it came out. So there is a little bit stuck to the bottom, unfortunately, but it happens. While we're going to be cutting this up, I'm also going to cut up my banana loaf. So I'll get that out and then we can cut them both up. For the brownie, we're going to cut it into triangle pieces. You can hear that outside is so crispy and the inside is so gooey. We're gonna try and stick this underneath the cutting board and then we're just gonna slide it in. Beautiful. I'm just gonna use the same knife because it's chocolate. This is a chocolate banana loaf. For this one, I am going to use parchment paper to wrap them. This time we'll do 1 and 1. So I'm trying a few different methods here to see which one is best. So these ones are also going to be wrapped with parchment, except I'm going to do a layer of flat, and then I'm going to do parchment paper and then another layer of flat. So I'm going to take each slice. They're so cute, these little wedges. So instead of the pointy side going in, now we're going to take the bigger side and put that down. Try and get as much air out of this as you can. That way it'll last a little bit longer. All right, now we're on to the granola bars. I'm hoping that I gave this long enough. It's been in the fridge for 6 hours. So we're going to do long and thin granola bars today, I think. Oh yeah. As I'm doing this, I'm like, why am I not just lifting them out with the parchment paper? Oh! So do that if you're making them. Take out the parchment paper, use a sharp knife. So I'm gonna try and take smaller pieces this time. You know what's so nice about these granola bars is that the base can be made into anything that you want. So I remember having growing up, either the ones with the little marshmallows in them and the chocolate chips, which I have been thinking about dehydrating marshmallows for a hot chocolate mix. Now these do not last longer than a couple of weeks in our house. However, if I was planning on making huge batches and storing them for months on end, I would definitely vacuum seal them. They will last about 3 months in the freezer as is, and about 4 to 5 days in the fridge, depending on which recipe you're talking about. I would definitely store them airtight and then vacuum sealed if I was going to try and store these longer than 3 months. Now all I have left is a little bit of cleanup, but my freezer is going to be completely stocked. Thank you so much for coming along this day with me. I had a really great time baking. I started at about 9:30 and it is 2:30 now, so it took a little bit less time than I had thought. If you try this, please let me know. I love to hear from you. Thank you so much for coming along with me today. This was such a fun day, and I really hope that you got some inspiration or ideas for snacks that you can make for your own family. If you like this video, please consider subscribing and giving a thumbs up. It really helps support my channel. I appreciate you more than you know. Take care.